Hello, my name is Jose Guzman, and I am an assistant teaching professor at the University of Washington. My classes tend to be very interactive. I teach by questioning. During that in class time, I normally talk for a few minutes and then ask a question. I give my students a couple of minutes to think about it. Oftentimes, I use clickers or poll reward to make them commit to an answer. But then there is always that component of talk to the people that you have around and discuss the question. After that, I will randomly call a student who shares the conversation that was going on with the rest of the class, and then I provide feedback. And that is what we call the think per share strategy. I use this approach because we know that when students talk to each other, when they're engaged in conversations, explaining stuff to their peers, and sometimes arguing, that is when magic happens. That is when they learn. And we have a lot of evidence for that. So now that we moved online and I am teaching using Zoom primarily, my question was, how do I translate this peer instruction strategy to an online environment? So we came up with this model in which we use breakout rooms in Zoom and a Google Doc. So the Google Doc contains all the questions that I want to ask during the session. It includes, in addition to the specific questions, plots and diagrams and sketches, all the information that the students need to answer those questions. You can think of it like a traditional worksheet, but in Google Docs. And that worksheet is replicated as many times as the number of breakout rooms, but all in the same document. So we have breakout room number 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. And each of them contains those questions, plots, diagrams, and sketches. In addition, each worksheet also has roles for the students. I normally have 4 students per breakout room, so I normally use 4 different roles. The moderator, who is in charge of facilitating the conversation, the timekeeper, who keeps the group on track by being mindful of the time, the note taker, who takes notes of the group discussion in the Google Doc, and the reporter, who will summarize the group discussion to the class. So this is how it works. We start the class in Zoom in the main room, and then I talk for a few minutes and I will ask a question, the first question in the worksheet. Now, instead of having the students talking to each other, I will send them to the breakout rooms where they discuss the question. After a few minutes, I'll bring them back to the main room and I will randomly call a breakout room where the reporter explains the answer or the conversation that was going on in that group. And now the class is just a back and forth from the breakout room where students talk to the main room where we as a class discuss the question. After using this strategy for quite some time now, I found to be very important that we have to create a very clear structure and expectations so students know exactly what to do in every moment. What is the question that they have to answer? So with that, we avoid when students are sent to breakout room, that moment where they are like, so what are we supposed to do now? What is the question? It is very important that everybody in the breakout room participates, and that's why we have specific roles for each student in the breakout room. 4 students, 4 roles, and those roles remain for the entire session. I try to keep the time in the breakout rooms relatively short, just a few minutes, enough time for the students to answer 1 or 2 questions, no more. And then I go back and forth from the breakout room to the main session as many times as we need. When we come back from the breakout room, I always honor the question that students were working on and discuss it. Students need to see the value of their conversations in their breakout rooms. Finally, and this is very important, students are working on a Google Doc. Remember that there is a note taker taking notes of the conversations so I can read real time the conversations going on. So I always keep an eye out, and if I see that there's some group falling behind or having problems, I just jump to that breakout room and provide help or feedback in the same way that I would do if I heard that conversation in class. I hope that helps. Ciao.